Now I'm going to put one more paragraph here, and I'm going to go down. Now after this class, I'm just going to hit P. I'm going to put an opening and closing P. And I'll put my closing P right here. Now it won't close it for you like it does in brackets. But what I'm going to do is where I have this open and closing P, I'm going to put a bunch of text in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to a site called Lipsum. Lipsum. And what it does is it creates something called Lorem Ipsum, which is just kind of placeholder text. Your site should look like this. So it's lipsum.com. And if you scroll down just a little bit, they have a generator here that'll just generate some, it's kind of like dummy copy. It's in like Latin or Greek or something. And we'll just use it just to kind of, placehold so we have a full paragraph. Now I'm just going to generate one paragraph right now. And I'll just hit generate, and even the one paragraph is pretty big, so I'm just gonna highlight part of this copy. It just makes copy that you can, it makes text so that you can copy. So I'll just go up to, I'll just find a period somewhere here. There's one, and I'll just copy it. That's all you do with it, is you just copy it. And I'll go back to where I was, and I'm gonna paste it in between these P tags. And I'll run it, and what it does, when I put it in here, you can see it uses the styling of our P, because right now it's just a P. Well, let's say I want to make it blue and I want to put a border on it, and I might even want to spread out the line height. Well, we can use the class again. We could try out using a class. Now I'm going to make, this time I'm going to make the class first. I'm just going to say P class equals, and I'll call it light blue. And I'll spell it out since I spelled out mint green. I'll put class equals light blue, and make sure you finish off the quote when you do that. That's all you have to do, and it has to be inside the P. It doesn't have to be anything in the closing P, just in the opening P. I'll call it P class equals light blue. Now if I run it, nothing happens because we don't have anything defined yet. Now if I go back up here, I'm going to make another class. Now what I'm going to do, I'll just copy it just to make life easy. I'll copy mint green, and I'll paste it, and I'll call it light blue. That way I don't have to retype the brackets and anything else. Now, I'm going to remove this, and I'll just keep background color for now, because I want to make it a background of like a light blue. Now again, from hex, how do you make it light blue? Start off with FF, 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 that makes it white. And then if we know that the last one is blue, we'll make the other two just a little bit darker. So instead of FF, I'll go EE, and I'll make the other one EE. That might not be enough, but we'll try it out. And that looks good. EEEEFF. So it's just a little bit less on the R and G, and the B is up all the way. So it's just a little, they're just a little bit down from keeping it all white. And if you want to make it a little bit darker, you could try DD. And experiment with these a little bit. Then that way you don't have to be looking up things in a color picker all the time. You'll be a little more familiar with it. Now, another thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to adjust the line height, because you can see, even though this isn't in a language I can read, it's pretty kind of cramped together in terms of the leading. In print we use leading, but we're going to spread out basically the line spacing. And the way we do that in CSS is it's called line height, and it's with a dash. And I'm going to put a colon, and the way we can do it here, you can do it in a percentage. There's lots of different ways. We'll talk about units more, but maybe we'll do it in a percentage. The default percentage is usually 120%. So let's say if we did it like 150%. And I'll put my semicolon here, and I'll run it and see what happens. And you can see what it does. And that's like, it's like 1.5 spacing, or close to it. Not quite like you would in Word, because remember, if 120 is default, 150 isn't quite as much as that. So you can go a little more. Maybe I'll put it at 160 and see how it looks. And it kind of spreads it out. Sometimes it just lightens up a paragraph, makes it a little easier to read. And what I'm also going to do here is put a border on it. I could put a border on it. I'll put border. Now we can do border top, border bottom, border left, just like we can with margin and padding. But if you just use one border property, you can put 3 values there kind of in a row. Now the 3 values you need for border are basically the type, which is like solid, which is the one you typically use, like solid border. The thickness, and I'm just going to put 1 pix for now, and then I'm going to put a space, and then also you can put the color. Now I'll put a pound sign, and then maybe I'll take the color from the background of my H1. This is that blue color, that dark blue color. Maybe I'll just copy this up here, and I'll put that dark blue color right here. I'll paste it in there and I'll put a semicolon, which kind of terminates it, it ends it. See, the semicolons are important because, especially in CSS, because it ends the one and starts the next one. So even if I forgot this one, it would probably work. Like just for example, let me skip that one and I'll run it. And it works. However, if I skip one of the other ones, if I skip this one, it might not work. See, it doesn't work because it doesn't read the next, what's happening next, and it doesn't even finish off the line height. So you could see here that the semicolons are important. Sometimes you could get away without them, but in this case we need it because it continues to the next one. So let me finish this off here. That should be a semicolon. So now when I do that, now it brings back the line height, it brings back the border, and that's all we're really going to do for this exercise right now. I just want us just playing around a little bit, getting familiar with some properties called margin. There's the page margin that we adjusted. We made the page margin 24, and that was in the body element. We basically gave that a 24 pixel margin. We changed the background color to more of a cream color for our body element. Moving down our H1s, we gave it a color of white. That's the font color. Background color of a darker blue. And then we put padding all around. We adjusted remember this is top, right, bottom, left. And we adjusted so that the right and left are a little more, just to make it look a little more even. And we did the same thing down here. This has a font family of Redania. And you could change this if you want to, but that's what it had to start. Font size is 16. If I took this out right now, backspace, nothing would happen because actually 16 is the default. So we don't really need that if it's going to be 16, but we do need it if it's 18. So 16 is usually the browser default. That could change, but that's typically what it is, especially on the Mac side. Sometimes on Windows, the resolution is a little bit different. You might see it appear just a little bit different. Font might appear bigger on Windows than it does on Mac. Then we made something called a class. We made a class with a dot. That's how we basically tell CSS that it's a class. It was called mint green. Had a couple properties here. Background color of mint green. We changed the font family. We changed the font size. And same thing with light blue. We gave it a background color of light blue. We changed the line height. We gave it a border. Now to apply these classes, we basically just gave each paragraph its own class name. So we said, give this one a class of mint green. Give this one a class of light blue. Now you could do anything. I could go in here. I could go in the H1 if I wanted to and do class equals mint green. I could apply that if I wanted to. Now let me put it in here. Now I could run it and see what happens, and you can see what it does. It inherits those properties in addition to what it has of its own. But I'm not going to do that, but you can do that. So you can use classes multiple times if you want to. So if there are other paragraphs that would need that blue background with a border, you could do it to other paragraphs. But we're going to stop right here for now. Here's a couple things you could do. You could just do like a Command A or Control A. You can copy it.
And then you can log into your Cloud 9 and you can open up your workspace for your CSC-230. So I'm going to open up my workspace. It's opening up right now. I'm going to close up my EX1 and I'm just going to save it loose in here. I'm not going to put it inside an EX1 folder. I'm just going to save it loose in here. So if I go to here, I could just go File, New File. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste all that code that I just did, and I'm going to paste it here. So I'm going to do a Control V or a Command V. I'm on a Mac. Now, right now, when I paste this, it doesn't show up with all those HTML colors, and that's because it's not an HTML file. So I'm going to make sure that I save it. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and you can see it's going here. So I want to make sure it's going in this folder. And I'm just going to call it My First CSS.html. Remember, everything's going in an HTML page. So I'll just call it My First CSS.html. Save it right in that folder. I'll hit Save. And there it is right there. So now it's all color-coded. That way it's a safe place to save it. I can find it. So if you're worried about sending a link or putting it in your comments or whatever you do and losing it out of your W3 schools, this is a kind of a safe way to put it in there. So we just saved it loose as a file called myfirstcss.html, and that's one way to do it too.
Another thing you could do, if you happen to see this, they do have a save thing here. And if you click on save, it actually saves it as URL. If you hit save, it says save your code, blah, blah, it has all this stuff here. If you hit save, it gives you your URL, and you could actually just copy this. You could copy this URL. I'll just copy it. and you can email me this URL, and then I would be able to see your code. Now, you just have to make sure you copy this somewhere. You paste it in an email, or you could paste it in a Word document. Another thing they have is also, because this one here is actually, I think this is saved code. See, I actually bookmarked it. So I went back to a previous one that I worked on. It's just generic. You can't change the file names or anything like that. But another thing they do have is you can, if you have Google Drive, you could connect it to a Google Drive account, and you can actually save a file right in your Google Drive, whichever one you're logged into, and you could save it right into your Google Drive, and you could do that too. So it's kind of helpful. It's nice that they finally give you the ability to be able to save these files as you're working with them. So because I think this is a nice kind of practice area, so that's why we're doing this a little now, just a little preview. We're only working with text so far. We're not laying out, we're not messing around with images or anything right now, but it's just kind of convenient, so we can just do all this right online. We could do it right now, and then you can either send me the URL or you can send me the file. You can send me the HTML file, my first CSS. I'll give you instructions on how to do that, but just make sure you have it saved somehow. There's no other attachments here. There's no images or anything like that. There's no external CSS files, so that should be fine to do that. So that's basically our CSS intro. This was part 4, depending on how long this went.